This week's Quick Tips is actually going to be a quick tool review. And the tool that I'm going to be reviewing is this awesome little fret tang nipper, which is manufactured and sold by a company called Sintoms. And I've talked about Sintoms products before. They make a lot of different kinds of fret wire. And if you don't know where Minsk is, it's sort of right between Warsaw, Poland, and Moscow, Russia. If you were to jump in a car in either city and drive from one to the other, halfway there you'd pass through Minsk. And so it's located in Eastern Europe. And this tool is really, I think, one of the best fret tang nippers that I have come across. And believe me, I have used a lot of fret tang nippers. I think if you remember episodes that I've done in the past, I've talked about my Dremel attachment that I use for nipping tangs, and this uses a carbide cutter, and it allows me to take a fret wire and then slide it into the bit and grind off just the end of the fret tang. And another tool that I came up with is this. It's a simple jig which I can insert a fret wire upside down into it and then clamp it down. Then I can use a metal file just to file off the end of that tang. Now, both those tools work well, but I really don't consider them to be a professional quality tool. It's not the sort of thing that I would want to use all day, every day. First of all, with the Dremel tool, the bits wear out really quickly, so you're constantly having to replace bits, and that means you have to keep a supply on hand. And with this tool, it requires a lot of elbow grease. And let's face it, when you're doing 24 frets on a neck, that's 48 ends that you have to trim. And that can get to be pretty exhausting after a while. So if you've got like 10 fretboards that you need to fret, that's going to be a huge number, 480 fret ends that you need to clip the tang on. So, those are basically just for if you're building like one guitar. Now, this is another tool that's out there. You can find these all over eBay and I think Amazon, and they're fairly cheap. And what this is, in truth, is a sheet metal nipper that's been repurposed to be a fret tang nipper. And it's modified by cutting a groove into the front so that you can take the fret wire and then just place it into the groove, and then you can snip off the fret tang. The problem with these tools is they take a tremendous amount of force to cut the tang, and that's especially true if your fret wire happens to be stainless steel. And another problem that happens is when you clip the tang, the piece can sometimes fall down inside the tool and jam up. And when that happens, you've got to take apart the tool to remove and clear that jam to get working again. So a tool like this becomes less efficient. And when I used this tool, I really got tired of having to deal with blisters and sore fingers after using it. So the Sintoms tool is designed specifically for the professional in mind. So let me bring you in closer so you can get a better look at this tool and how it works. The Sintoms fret tang nipper is a solid, well-built tool, which is what I would call a purpose-built tool. It is designed specifically to nip fret tangs. It's not a repurposed tool that has been modified to do the job. Rather, it was engineered specifically for that task. And to understand how it works, I really need to kind of explain the anatomy of the tool. And the tool consists of a handle, and attached to the handle via a pivot pin is this piece here, which I would call the trigger. And the way you use the tool is you hold it so that the handle is in your palm and your fingers are squeezing the trigger. And then what you do is you will insert the fret wire onto the top in a slot which has been milled across the top surface. Okay, so to use the fret tang nipping tool, like I said, you place the handle against your palm and fingers on the trigger. And I like to hold it down fairly low so that I get good leverage when I squeeze the tool's trigger. And what you have to do is you have to orient the fret wire correctly into the tool. And as I mentioned before, there's a groove that's been milled into the top surface. And you simply place the fret wire with the crown facing toward you and the tang facing away from you. And you just place the crown into that groove and slide it in as far as you would like to go to nip as much of that tang off as you want. Then you lightly squeeze the trigger to bring the cutter down in contact with the tang, and then just give it a light squeeze, and that clips off the tang, and it clips it off flush with the bottom surface of the fret crown. So it's very easy to use. It doesn't take a lot of pressure, a lot of exertion, so you can clip tangs all day long and not have to worry about getting blisters or sore knuckles or anything like that. And if there was one thing that could be done to improve the tool, it would be to add a depth stop so that you can control the amount of tang that you remove. But alas, the folks at Sintoms have actually thought of that. This is an accessory, it's an option that you can purchase for this tool, which they call the fret tang limiter. And essentially it's a depth stop. You've got a pin which can be adjusted in or out that limits how much of the fret wire you can slide into the tool. And the way it works is you simply place the depth stop onto the handle of the tool, tighten this thumb screw to hold it in place. And once you have it in place, you can then adjust that pin in or out to limit how much of the tang that you're going to remove. And all you have to do is just insert the fret wire as I did before until it comes up against that depth stop, and then bring the cutter down until it contacts the tang and snip it off. Now, the advantage of having this accessory on here is you can set this up so that it will only remove just the amount of tang that you need without removing too much. Because if you remove too much of the tang when you press it into the slot on your fretboard, there's a chance that this end is not going to seat properly if you've taken too much of that tang off. So having the depth stop allows you to control that and limit it. And that, of course, means that as you're snipping the tangs, you don't have to concentrate on how far you're sliding the fret wire into that groove. It's only going to go so far before it hits the stop. So you can eliminate that part of the process, that part where you have to waste time thinking and instead just go through the mechanical motion. The other advantage of using that accessory is if you're doing 24 frets, that's 48 ends. And if you use the depth stop limiter, you can precisely clip the ends of every single one of those frets. So all of them will have exactly the same amount of fret tang removed. And that's important for a lot of guys who are focused on trying to maximize the precision of the instruments they build. So there you have it. That's the Sintoms fret tang nipping tool and the Sintoms optional fret tang limiter depth stop. And I know that All Parts sells the tool itself. I think that the limiter is still so new that it may not be out on the market yet, but I also know that All Parts tends to sell out of these tools as soon as they get them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description below to the Sintoms website. I'm also going to include their email address so that you can contact them to find out about purchasing this tool and the limiter directly from them. So if you're a pro luthier who's going to be nipping tangs all day long, every single day, this is the tool you need to get. It just does a beautiful job of nipping those tangs off with a high degree of precision. So that's it for this week. We will see you in the next episode of From the Luthiers Workbench, as well as the next quick tips. And who knows what that quick tips will be about. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll find out. So take care and we'll see you soon.